Well, hello again from here at the Vitality Stadium. Now, it's supposed to be a few degrees warmer down here on the south coast, so goodness knows how cold it is up in Newcastle today, because it's not very pleasant here. And that game, what played out there behind me, did little to warm the soul. Yeah, I thought the contest got the scoreline it deserved in the end, 0-0. But please try and stay with me for these reflections. I'll try and get a little hot under the collar, which is fairly easy to achieve when you look at Newcastle's attacking output, because that is what has let them down there today. Yes, you can argue there's a good point, and I know when I put my reflections on X there on full time, a lot of people come back and said I was being negative, and that's just the way really of the response on social media sometimes. But I wasn't being negative, because a point is only a good point if it points to 3 points down the line. How many points can you get in one section? Yes, I want to make my point here, and the point I'm making is that yes, that was a decent enough draw. You come in here beforehand, and you'd probably say from a Newcastle perspective to emerge with a draw, given Bournemouth have won the last 3. Newcastle have played against Barcelona on Thursday night in a hard game. The distance travelled, a draw is not the worst result, absolutely not. But it's the manner of it that would concern me, and that is because it was a game that was there to be won, especially in the second half, and Newcastle just didn't know how to go and win it. And in previous seasons they would have done. Eddie Howe's principles around this side have been built on attacking play. It's been built on scoring goals, but that's 3 away matches on the spin now, 0-0 draws. And not only are they, this would be my worry, not only are they not scoring, the first part of the bargain, the first half of the equation when it comes to scoring a goal is creating a chance, and that's what's dried up. That's the concern, that is the worry. Newcastle had 3 shots on target at Aston Villa on the opening day, 2 at Leeds a fortnight later, 1 there today, 1 shot in the first half, which was Jacob Murphy there during a break that was easily saved. Beyond that, in the second, guys with lawnmowers, everywhere we go, they really are. They just wait for me to get the salty stick out. Yeah. Anyway, on we go. He'll pass in a moment. Yeah, they just didn't really look like creating those chances, especially in the second half there, because Newcastle didn't start well, and that was evidenced really a symptom of the 7 changes. So it's understandable that when they had 7 out of 11 players probably undercooked, needing those minutes in the legs, and that's the dilemma Eddie Howe has got, because in a season when he is going to have to rotate, how do you get the minutes and the fitness into players without there being a compromise? And we saw that compromise there early in the game. I thought Newcastle started soft. They started weak, certainly down the left channel, just in front of the press box here. Lewis Hall and Joe Willock looked really undercooked, and Bournemouth were getting through them. I couldn't really understand it when Semenyo switched to the opposite wing. I would have kept Semenyo on the right for the entirety of the game, but Bournemouth failed to build on that. I thought they were definitely the better team during the first 15 minutes. Newcastle had 1 or 2 scares, 1 or 2 let-offs. Certainly the David Brooks offside goal was far closer on 15 minutes than it looked in real time. It was only the width of his calf in the end. But from that point on, Bournemouth didn't really show or build on that early promise. They didn't show enough ambition. And if Newcastle's game plan was to come here and contain and counter, and then for that to evolve into control, it worked. It really did work. You know, on reflection, I've actually got no gripe with Eddie Howe's selection. I understand it. There's no quarrel to be had with the changes he made. Yes, 1 or 2 within that didn't perhaps grasp their chance and perform to the level the manager perhaps expected, and he touched on that afterwards. But overall, the performance put them in a position, in a place to win the game. The concern and the worry would be that they weren't able to go on and do that. Now, you look at Nick Woltemade and you say, well, what part did he play in Newcastle's failure to score a goal, given he is the £69 million centre forward through the middle? And all of my reflections on the wake of Thursday night against Barcelona, and I do believe it was an opportunity missed, that if Volltardo had been on the pitch, Newcastle could have gone and scored during that opening 15-20 minutes when it was fast and it was furious. Now, the start here was the absolute polar opposite of that. Newcastle did sit in with a back 5. You know, you can argue it was a 3-4-3. It wasn't. I was sat here, guys, you're watching them line up during that opening period there. It was 5-4-1. They showed close to nothing in the final third, really, but they did get themselves into a position where they contained Bournemouth, an informed Bournemouth with a player such as Semenyo. They then go into the second half, even approaching half time, Newcastle absolutely grew into the game approaching the interval, and there was the signs of what was there to come in the second half. But when it came to it, even when the cavalry arrived, so to speak, with Anthony Elanga and with Harvey Barnes, they played almost exclusively in Bournemouth's final third there, but did they really create a chance? No, they didn't. And I started this little section here talking about where do you put Nick Woltemade within that equation. Now, I wouldn't blame Volltardo at all, and Eddie Howe doesn't either. He was very keen to stress afterwards. It's a team issue. But, and I know you guys are going to shout back here, we don't want to talk about Alexander Isak, he's gone. It's unavoidable, you've got to talk about Isak. And Eddie Howe brought him into the conversation with us twice there, unprompted, and he said, it's going to take a while to evolve into a different team and hopefully a better team. Those were Eddie's words. And I thought it was telling that he saw fit to mention Isak twice there with us. And I use that word, it is unavoidable, because they've replaced Isak, who, I said this on Sky Sports Sunday Supplement this morning, I was asked about Newcastle, and yes, they've improved the strength of the squad, and you looked at the bench there, the depth and the options they've got should have been enough for me to come on in, win the game, and it wasn't, and we'll talk about the wingers in just a moment. But the starting 11 is weaker, and that's not a criticism at all. It's got to be, because they've lost Alexander Isak. And yes, I know again, guys, you'll be saying move on from him. But it's important that we do dissect this and analyse this, because in taking Isak out, and this is me talking to what Eddie's just said to us, again, I've got to make the point, Eddie brought it up unprompted, it is very different. It is going to take time. You saw there Volltardo's own frustration a couple of times when he's clapping his hands for the ball to be played into him quicker and sharper and at a height he can deal with, because when he did have those little moments in tight spaces, he plays some lovely passes. He put Murphy away with one in the first half there. And this is a question I asked of Eddie, and Eddie kind of shot me down to a degree. I said, and it goes back to what I said earlier there about the first half of the bargain being creating chances. Now, I like strikers who miss chances. Nick Woltemade in 3 games in a black and white shirt, albeit just a late cameo against Barcelona, he's had 1 chance and he scored with that, albeit it was a brilliant finish. So my worry about Woltemade would be is that he's not missing chances right now. I'd be more encouraged if he was getting in there and getting on the end of things, even if they were going high, wide and not very handsome. Now, Eddie's comeback to me was, well, no, that wouldn't be a criticism of Nick Woltemade. His record shows that he is a chance getter. He is a goal getter. It's more on the team to create those moments. And I get that, and I agree with that, but that is what is going to take time. And that is why, to go back to what I said at the very top, that point there today is a good point. It's not a bad point. It's solid. It's 4 clean sheets out of 5, but just the general mechanics of the team wouldn't necessarily suggest to me, I'd be convinced that the next time they go out, it's going to go and it's going to be 3 points. It is going to take time to adapt to a totally different type of player in Nick Woltemade. On the back of that, allied to that, is the loss of Yoane Wissa is absolutely being massively felt at the moment. If Vissa's fit, Newcastle beat Barcelona. I said that on Thursday night. I'll apply that to here. If Vissa's fit and he's either coming off the bench to replace Woltemade or he starts, and maybe Vissa starting this type of game might have been better for Newcastle, I think they go and win. They were the better team. They looked like they had the better players, and that is, if you want positives from it, that's encouraging. You know, come the end of the game, certainly going into the second half, who looked as if they had the better structure then, played more in the opposition's final third. Well, that was Newcastle, but that positive can be flipped into a negative because they weren't able to go and do something about it. And I agree with Eddie Howe, I wouldn't attach that criticism to Woltemade, but I do just look at him and wonder when and how is he going to get into those positions to score within this team. And by the time it does take, well, a third of the season could be gone, especially as we're looking at another 4, 5, 6 matches for Newcastle without Yoane Wissa. So that would be the worry. So then the next part of my question would be, and this is what I put to Eddie Howe, I said, okay, but it's going to take time for those structures, those building blocks to develop. Isn't that then on the wingers to offer more? Anthony Elanga, Harvey Barnes, Jacob Murphy, Anthony Gordon when he returns. Joe Willock came in there today. Joe Willock didn't necessarily have a good game, but the problem with Willock, is a little insert here, is Willock needs games to be at his very best. He needs a run of games, but he probably isn't going to be afforded that run of games. So it's catch-22. It's the same with some of the other players who came in there. Lewis Hall needs a run of games. Do you keep him in the team? Well, he might, and he might have to if he wants to get Lewis Hall back to England level. Lewis Hall. We'll touch on the centre-backs in a moment because I thought they were good, but certainly on the wingers. Now, between them, they just haven't contributed enough so far this season. I thought Jacob Murphy's probably been the pick of the lot, and again, he had that only shot on target Newcastle had there in the first half. It looks as if him and Nick Woltemade could link up well together, so I would keep Murphy and Woltemade together as a pair. But Alanga played well against Barcelona on Thursday night, but there wasn't, at the end of his promise and purpose and pace, those conversions. You can probably lay that at the door of others when you look back on Barca. But Alanga needs to offer more. Harvey Barnes needs to offer more. He had one good burst in the second half there, but more needs to come from the wingers, especially in the modern game. When you look at the assist rates and the conversion of the inverted wingers in terms of goals and laying on chances, it's got to be more. It's got to be better. Now, Eddie Howe said yes, but you've got to look to other areas of the team. You've got to look to the midfield to contribute more. The defence, the fullbacks have always played a big part in Newcastle's chance creation and goal conversion too. So I get that, and that's why I come back to that point that they're just not functioning as a team now in that offensive sense. Everything is there, the solidity, the building blocks, some good performances. They're playing well. I said this on Sunday supplement. They're not playing badly. I've seen Newcastle play badly. They're not playing badly. They're really not. It's not panic stations, far from it. But do I see reason to stand here and be absolutely convinced and say, "You don't worry, guys. They're going to turn a corner"? No, I'm not. I don't want that to sound negative because I'm almost contradicting myself. I think they'll continue for now. The narrative we've seen during the early weeks of the season, this would be my worry to a degree, is one I think we might see continue. That is that they play well. They play well enough. There's good performances within that, but they might just be undone in the short to medium term by not getting the reward for that because they can't score enough goals right now. And yes, they scored the 3 against Liverpool, but I've touched on this already. 2 of those came when they were down to 10 men amid a period of absolute chaos. The best goal of the lot this season actually came in the last minute against Barcelona the other night. A wonderful Newcastle goal, which I didn't actually realise on reflection when I went to watch it back, had all the hallmarks of an Eddie Howe type goal. That's where they need to get to. And until we see either chances missed or goals scored at the end of those moves that we know they can knit together with those recognisable patterns. Up there you go, you sat there watching it, there's the underlap, there's the overlap, there's the player at the far post on the end of it, there's the pullback. We're just not seeing enough of that, and that is why I wouldn't walk away from here as a Newcastle observer saying everything's okay. I don't think it is right now, and that's not necessarily a criticism. It's just going to take time to get to where they need to be. Nick Woltemade is entirely different to Alexander Isak. Johan Wissa, a player who might have made that transition smoother, isn't here, and he's not going to be here for the next 4 or 5 weeks. So until Wissa is fit and they learn to play with Volltardo, it might still, I was going to use the phrase, get worse before it gets better. There might be more of the same before it gets better. Now, one point from the game I do want to touch on just quickly, because if this had been different, Newcastle might have actually won the game, and that wouldn't have been massively, undeserved. I said at the top there, didn't have the game got the scoreline it deserved. I thought in the second half, if any team were going to go and win it, it would have been Newcastle, and they might have done had not so much referee Robert Jones, but VAR revisited the incident in the 55th minute when the cross comes in from the right. It's not a great cross from Tino Livramento. It's a bit low, it's a bit flat. If he delivered it like Jacob Murphy did against Wolves, Volltardo against Wolves, Volltardo might even have got his head on the end of it, but it was behind him. Nick Woltemade takes the touch when he's back to goal. Let's just get ourselves in a position to recreate it. And he's going away from goal, and he's got Diakite behind him. If Woltemade makes that big stride, he might just be able to get on it and turn and have a shot. But his shirt is tugged by Diakite. Now, the referee, as I said, was straight on, so it's understandable that he didn't see it, didn't have the best angle. VAR has got every angle available. Now, I knew when I saw the replay, and we saw a replay pretty quickly, that it wouldn't be revisited and overturned. That was just an instinct thing. Does that mean I didn't think it was a penalty? No, I think it was a penalty. Do I think it should have been revisited and overturned? Yes, I think it do. I just know that the bar is so high for intervention. It was one of those you looked at it and thought, whatever decision was made on field, it would have stuck. But that's not the point of VAR, because for me, a foul should be a foul. And the laws of the game, at no point do they allow for an opponent to tug the shirt of an opposition player. Now, to apply a little bit of sort of my own skewed science to this, Nick Woltemade wears a big baggy shirt. If he was wearing a tighter shirt, I think the pull would look a little bit more violent, a little bit more obvious. There might even have been a ripped shirt, but because it's got so much bag and so much give in it, it didn't look like a necessarily strong tug. Now, I hope that makes sense. I might be talking absolute nonsense, but that is just my crazy logic I've applied to it. And because also married to this, Nick Woltemade is 6'5", and he went down a little bit easy, but I don't blame him for that because he's felt the shirt tug and he's thought, well, okay, I've lost the yard I need to go and get to that ball to do what I want to do. Why don't I go down? I've been fouled, and he was fouled, and he should have had the penalty, but he didn't. Now, Eddie Howe said afterwards that it was his instinct, immediately there was a penalty, he hasn't seen a replay back. I think when Eddie sees the replay back, he won't change his mind. It should have been a spot kick to Newcastle, and with that, I think they would have went on to win the game because at the back, after a shaky start, when Bournemouth were getting through them a little bit too easily, when I didn't think the resistance was good, they became really strong. And this takes us onto the merit stars because it features a couple of those at the back. So straight into them, 1 star goes to Malik Chow, making his full debut, and I thought he was good. Now, I thought he was actually good on the ball. He played in that right channel of the 3 at the back there. When he got it, he brought it out of defence. We saw the Cruyff turn against Barcelona on Thursday night. He looks lovely and comfortable. Now, over time, if he is to replace Fabian Schär, yes, he's been brought in as a defender, but Schär offers so much going forward. Chow, now I'll wait until I return a verdict on this, but the early signs would suggest he is good on the ball and he can take Newcastle up the pitch. He can step out of the back line with the ball. So I thought Chow was encouraging. Was he fortunate not to be sent off at the end there? I know Iraola made that point in his press conference where he was already on a booking. I know it was Eddie Howe took him off moments later. He's blocked the run into the box. No, I think it would have been a soft second yellow, but nonetheless, Eddie Howe reacted. It was the right call to take him off. 2 stars go to Sandro Tonali. Now, was it Tonali's best game? No, I don't think it was, because the bar for him is absolutely extremely high. But I thought in the midfield alongside Louis Miley. Now, Miley had some good, some bad. Looked like he needed the minutes. Certainly saw a lot of the ball. Did some good with it. Other times he got caught a little flat-footed or 1 or 2 little wayward passes. But again, a teenager who needs games, needs a run, needs confidence. And Eddie Howe said that afterwards they've got to get those minutes and that trust into Miley. So on the whole, I thought he did okay. Certainly signs for encouragement. But Tonali alongside him, and what was in effect a 2-man midfield, especially in the second half there, he carried Newcastle at times and then the middle of the park, driving them upfield. And I thought he was the biggest reason for that turnaround in the game. It was Bournemouth's midfield early on was very good, but Tonali got to grips with it as the match went on. Another powerful performance from deep, even allowing for it being, far from his very best. And he's got to show more of a goal threat. That's one thing I would say. Tonali's got a tremendous shot in him. He has got that ability to score goals and threaten. And then a game like today, when it was there for a big moments player to go and grab it and win the game for Newcastle, I would still like to see more from him in that regard. Now, the 3 stars, Sven Botman. I thought he was very good. Now, Sven Botman, during that impeccable debut season, we honestly thought we were seeing the best centre-half Newcastle have had since Jonathan Woodgate. Since then, it's been so disrupted by injuries, and it really is quite something. He's got to 25 now, 26 in January, and he still hasn't been capped by Holland, because Sven Botman, on his day, and today it was his day when we saw his strength, his reading of the game, his pace, his passing. I thought he was Newcastle's best player, and that'll be encouraging, because Sven Botman doesn't like being behind Dan Burn and Fabian Schär in the pecking order. But he's got a chance now, because of Schär's concussion, he's got a chance to win that place in the team. And in that regard, that was the best response he could have given there today. Now, that's it for now, guys. And as I said, just to revisit, I hope these reflections haven't sounded negative. I just hope they've been realistic of where Newcastle are, because that wasn't a bad performance. It was a hard watch. You've got to hit any performance where a team, Bournemouth had 2 shots on target, Newcastle had 1, and fair play to Nick Pope, a little mention there at the end. First shot on target in the second half is the Justin Kluivert free kick, which he saves with his feet there. Good stop, and the 2 times he was needed, he was good. Pope, Nick Pope was having a good season. I thought it was telling that Eddie Howe didn't rotate even the mid-7 changes, didn't bring Aaron Ramsdale in. I would keep Pope in there right now the way he's playing, but yeah, that's just where they're at right now, guys. You know, I've been through it all. It's not reason to be doom and gloom, because everything is there for Newcastle to go and have a good season. I've said that. They've got good players, a brilliant manager. I said all of this on Sunday supplement this morning, but they're a pen without ink at the moment. And they just need that finishing touch, that final flourish. Otherwise, the score sheet will remain blank. But on now to Bradford in midweek. I'll be back talking to Eddie Howe on Tuesday ahead of the game at St James. And then next weekend, a huge one against Arsenal. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. Tell me what you think below the line. What do you think? Am I being positive, negative, realistic? What do you think of my reflections on this one? Because there seemed to be a little bit of anger out there on full time, as ever there is, a little bit of anger towards me, towards the players, towards the game, towards the style, a little bit of anger towards everything. Are you angry? Or are you okay? Now you've probably had a little bit of time to cool down and reflect on this. Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you again in the week. Okay, take care. Goodbye.